Gloria Lattimore Peace, host and producer of OmniU presents the H3O show. The title of this show is Spiritual Matters, Sisters in Ministry. And I am very happy to recognize and greet my guest, Reverend Henrietta Byrd, who I have been wanting to have on the show for quite a while, and finally I have her. And there were more things that I would be able to tell you about her, but we forgot to bring the sheet in. So I will tell you this, that she's a staff member at Christ Universal Temple. She's the creator of Transformative Talk. That's her personal blog talk radio. And she's a part of the Power Center for Better Living. She's an interim minister at Unity Christian Church in Memphis, Tennessee. That's my hometown.
Wow.
So the next time I'm down there, I'll just come over and see you if you're on deck. But you refer to yourself as a New Thought Christian. So do you want to say something about that, or do you want to say something else to start?
Well, a couple of things to start.
Okay.
Thank you so much
You're welcome
for
so
the
much.
invitation. And I just want to be clear that I'm a staff minister at Christ Universal Temple.
All right.
And a staff minister at the Empowerment Center for Better Living.
Okay.
Both of those are here in Chicago. Both of those are under the direction of people who came from Christ, from Christ Universal Temple.
All right.
And so throughout the week, I'm in one or the other place.
Okay.
When I'm here in Chicago.
All right.
In Memphis, there's a Unity Church, a Unity Christian Church.
Yeah.
The first African American Unity Church in Memphis.
Oh.
And that's where I am one of the interim ministers. There are three of us.
Okay.
And we rotate,
Okay.
taking care of that, the ministerial duties of that church.
Okay.
And I'm beginning to love Memphis. I've been there many times, about 4 or 5 times this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm getting to know a lot about Memphis.
Tell me about your journey. How did you come into the ministry?
I came into the ministry through almost like people get, they go to college and they decide after they acquire that bachelor's degree, then they go and they get a master's, then they get a PhD, and it was very similar to that. I started to study at the Johnny Coleman Institute here in Chicago. And there are several stages of education there. And so I went from what's called a master's certificate, which is just learning how to live a better life. I went from that stage to the teacher's training program, which was an intensive program for 2 years that trained teachers how to teach people who wanted to live a better life and how to counsel. So I learned to be a teacher and a counselor. And then the next step was the ministerial program. And so that occurred years ago. Actually, it was probably in the early 90s. And Reverend Coleman at the time would, you had to be chosen. And so she would choose so many people who had completed the teacher training program, and then they could go into the ministerial program. And so I did that. I went through the ministerial program first with Reverend Coleman, and when she passed the baton to Reverend Mary Tumpkin in in Miami, Florida, she created a program that was more like the program that you would go through at a seminary. So they opened the Johnny Coleman Theological Seminary. And so I went through again because I wanted to go through her program as well. And was ordained through the Johnny Coleman, by Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman.
I have the utmost respect for Reverend Dr.
I know.
Johnny Coleman for many years.
Yeah.
I attended CUT, so did my late husband. And we both took classes there, didn't aspire to grow up to be anything, did participate in some activities with the Center for Better Living. It seemed to me it had a different name than the one that you've mentioned, but it probably was associated with or the same thing, and met a number of ministers from that church, some of whom are deceased now. But powerful woman, and worthy of a book, worthy of a documentary,
Yes.
you know, worthy of a series of television shows talking about the pioneer that she was in so many ways and the obstacles that she faced and overcame. Once my godfather told me this. I don't know if it's true, but because my godfather told me, I take it as truth. This was either his eyewitness or it was somebody who told him about it. There was a day on which a storm was coming, and it was a very foreboding storm. It was looking very ominous. And they say she raised her hand and said, "Peace, be still," and it stopped. Well, now, my godfather was not one who make up stories,
right.
but he told me that about her. I didn't see her do that, but it was hard not to believe that she did not have the kind of confidence that she would think that she could stop a storm. But he told me, you know, many things about the beginning of the church, and I just like the way that she took charge of her ministry, you know, that she took over what was rightfully hers and turned it into what is now sitting there at 119th Street right off the expressway. You know, it's as I say, it's worthy of all kinds of note, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but I certainly hope it will.
Soon, right.
Right.
Well, I'll just add one thing to what your godfather said. That is a true story.
Okay.
And many people in the city can tell you about that because it was, originally the church was going to be built at 95th and Stony Island, where that big mall is, where, you know, all the stores are.
The one that's on 119th Street.
Yes, originally was supposed to be at 95th and Stony, but because of the area, and there were ducks, and there were different things that the community wanted to, you know, preserve. There was a kind of a pushback there, but that incident actually took place at one of the ribbon cutting ceremonies.
Okay.
There, and that was the weather.
Okay.
And she was very, very confident.
Right.
In her faith.
Right.
That whatever she asked for, it would be given. That's what we were taught.
Right.
That's why we're considered New Thought Christians, because we believe in the power of what we think and what we speak.
Right.
And so we're careful, very careful, to only speak things that we want in our lives versus things that we don't want, because we are just that powerful that we can make those things, the things we don't like, we can have them occur also.
Right.
So that's
there's something in this book, 365 Days of Richer Living, is Ernest Holmes, of course, a founding father of New Thought, and Raymond Charles Barker, another founding father. It says that I realize that doubts about my ability to use the law are things of thought. What thought has produced, thought can change. If one does not have that kind of confidence, then one needs to try to develop it, because you are absolutely right. My husband would say things like, never use I am or I'm with anything negative. You know, he didn't like a spiritual that said, I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. He never wanted, because I am has so much power. That is who I am.
That's right.
That is myself. That is
Yes.
God.
Yes.
And consequently, one does not want to say negative things about oneself, about the Most High. One wants always to say when I am saying I am, to have it be followed by something positive.
Right.
You want to speak to that, I know.
And that's exactly what I was saying. So when I practice that, and I practice it through noticing, through paying attention to myself, right? It's not my job to make sure you do it. My job is to make sure I do it. And if I do it on a regular basis, if I'm paying attention to what I think, then what I say, because usually the thought comes first, then I can create the kind of life that I intend to enjoy. And if I don't notice, if I just don't pay attention to myself, to my thinking, to my speaking, and I'm just, saying whatever, then whatever is what's going to show up in my life, because it is a law and it is a power of attraction. And that's how we attract those things we think about, those things we ponder, those things that we speak. So if I'm in a situation or I don't like the way things are going in my life, that same power I utilize by changing. I call it flipping.
Flipping the script.
Right, it's a technique, and you flip it. So if I'm experiencing something that I call negative, then I flip it, and I start to speak it powerfully. Like if I'm feeling like this, then I'll flip it and I say, I am strong, I am energetic, I am healthy, I'm vibrant, I'm beautiful. I say things that empower me so that I can change my thinking. And so if I continue to do that, and some days I may only have to do it for 5 minutes. Some days I may have to do it for an hour. It just depends on what I've allowed into my consciousness.
Right. And it takes a while. This is not something that it's not like a fad diet that you jump on it and jump off. Why would one not want to exercise more influence in one's own life? Why would one always want to be a leaf in the wind getting blown about when one could at least make the effort?
And to speak to that, because one of the things that Johnny, we called her Johnny, and she loved that, used to say, if they knew better, they'd do better. Some people have never been exposed to new thought. You hear it a lot more now than ever. But if all I know is that worm in the dust, or that you won't amount to anything, or if that's all I've heard, then that's what I believe. And so that's why it's so important that we get the message out.
Right.
So people can turn their lives around.
Here's what. We have to go from believing to knowing.
Yes.
And the way you know something is to know it because it is a reality in your life. And the way it becomes a reality in your life is that you allow it, you invite it, you encourage it. And when you say new thought, that sounds like something different. But if you turn on television and watch many of the televangelists, you will see them attempting at least, the same thing. Joel Osteen has a whole book called I Declare. What is that but asserting that this is the situation, creating the situation that you want by asserting And on some level, see, on the level where we actually are, our divine nature, on that level, we are perfect, we are whole, there is nothing negative. We are perfect, we are whole. You must default to that. Whenever you're on the level of the physical, the material, you have to default to the spiritual to bring the physical in alignment.
Exactly.
With what actually is the reality that is, because the rest of this is false. Mm-hmm. It's fantasy.
And that's why it's called New Thought, because even though New Thought has been around since the 1800s, mm-hmm. That's still a new thought. Mm-hmm. The fact that you can say that I can be on the same level mm-hmm. as spirit, or mm-hmm. that I am spirit,
or that the
perfect
kingdom of God is within
me, that's blasphemous to some traditional beliefs. Mm-hmm. And so it takes a new thought to open yourself up to that. Mm-hmm. You know, it takes a new way of being. It takes mm-hmm. practicing the presence. Mm-hmm. You know, it takes mm-hmm. the value and power of your thinking. Mm-hmm. It takes those things. Mm-hmm. Practice regularly before you can even open your mind to receive mm-hmm. that there's more than one place for me to be, mm-hmm. that I can be in this physical space, mm-hmm. but there's also a spiritual space mm-hmm. that I can be in mm-hmm. where I can rise above mm-hmm. this level of whatever might be occurring here. Mm-hmm. That at any moment, I can just turn within mm-hmm. and I can become one with that power that heals, mm-hmm. that power that prospers, mm-hmm. that power that unifies. I can be one with that power, and I can speak to the weather, peace be still, mm-hmm. and the storm will go away. Mm-hmm. See, that's a new thought. Mm-hmm. That's a new thought.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the other way that we get to it is we get to it because we experience it. See, God is something that has to be experienced.
That's the only way you will know
it
God.
Has to. We have to try things. Mm-hmm. We have to try the next time. Mm-hmm. You know, we have to try leaving the house without our wallet or our purses mm-hmm. and going and getting whatever we were going to get.
Or we have to test. We will have to reflect on the times that things happen that we know perfectly well, that we could yes. not have done, that we would never have thought to have
exactly.
done. We have to have a problem solved in a way you never thought possible, that you couldn't have thought possible because you couldn't have thought that.
Right.
So you have to recognize that this power is in the universe. Mm-hmm. The thing is that what troubles me about people who profess to be Christians is that they really don't study. They say they go to Bible study, mm-hmm. but either they don't study or they don't internalize what they read. Because there it is, know ye not that you are the temple of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
The kingdom of God is within. The mind of God is in you. Mm-hmm. What else do you need God to tell you about yourself? That you don't know that there's a divinity, a divine spirit within yourself that is at your command should you choose to use it for right purposes. You can't just use it to do anything because it is the spirit of love. Mm-hmm. So it is not going to do its opposite. But the thing is, if you're reading that and you're studying that and you're internalizing that, then that is what you default to when you start your social conditioning starts distracting you, and you start commiserating about your condition.
That's what you default to when you notice. I use that term, notice, mm-hmm. what's going on. with
Oh,
you.
okay.
See,
Okay.
we don't always pay attention to ourselves.
Okay.
We don't pay attention to our thoughts. We don't pay attention to our words. We become creatures of habit. And so if I'm talking to you, then I'm in this new thought conversation and we can have it. But if I walk out that door, then I might be in a traditional world. And so I have to be strong enough to remain a new thought Christian when I'm talking to other people and not allow what I hear to become a part of what I believe. And that's what happens. As long as we're in class, we're fine. As long as we're in church,
Right.
we're okay.
As long as we're among like-minded
People,
right,
we're
we're
good.
fine.
But what happens when we interact with the traditional Christians even?
Oh, I just give them some of their own words.
Yeah, and that's, or some of yours. See, if I become the example, if I say, well, let's not talk about that, or let's talk about something more positive, right? Even in the doctor's office, you go in the doctor's office and there's a television that's on, and everything on the television is negative, right? Will you be strong enough in your belief to ask them to change the channel? See, that's how serious it is.
Well, you have to watch the things that go into your
Into
mind.
your mind, exactly.
Because now you have to do house cleaning.
Regularly. That's one of the things Transformative Talk does. Transformative Talk does a series of spiritual cleanses.
Okay.
Right? And what we do is I'm on the 35th day, as a matter of fact, of a 40-day cleanse. And what we do is we go in for 40 days.
You're doing a spiritual cleanse. Good.
And what it does is it cleans out your subconscious mind. Where all your memory, all your tradition, all your habits, all your fear, all of that, and it cleans that out. And you call in once a day for Monday through Friday, not on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
And you call in, or we video, conference call in, and you're given an assignment every day. And you have to do that work in the next 24 hours.
Okay.
So that the next day you have moved past something. It's a wonderful
That's a spiritual
program.
detox.
Yes, that's what I call it, a cleanse.
Well, in the health industry, people are famous for going on diets and detoxes. And when you go on a detox, you're really serious.
Right.
Now, the situation has gotten very ominous, and so you need to get this junk out of your system and clean yourself up so you can be healthy and strong and vigorous and vital. So a spiritual detox, because we need to recognize we're exposed to a lot of media. There's a television going somewhere, a radio going somewhere. There are magazines and books and newspapers floating through. There's conversations going on.
Yes.
And so there are a lot of ideas and notions and concepts coming into your spiritual space, into your mental space. And consequently, so much of it goes in while you're not paying attention.
You're unconscious of it.
That you don't even know it's in there.
Exactly. And that's why we do it. And we do it maybe 4 or 5 times a year. And you would be amazed at the things that come up for people. Things that occurred when they were 4 and 5 years old that they remember as if it is happening today. That they have to let go of. Things that they heard their grandparents say, their great-grandparents say. Things, rules that they're living by that don't serve them. But I picked it up because that's what so-and-so did. That's what I heard. That's what I was told, right? And so we have all of this stuff, clutter, that we have to let go of.
Debris, because it's garbage.
That's exactly what it is, but we don't even know it's there. So in the 40-day, we start with 30 days, and at the end of 30 days, if the group wants to go to 40, they make that decision. And we begin with a technique of realization, where you get to think about where you are and why you are where you are and how you feel about where you are. That's where we start. And it just unfolds every day from then on. It's a wonderful experience.
I'm anxious to experience that experience.
It's all kind of things come up.
I have a lot of blessings in my life, and sometimes my cup runneth over.
Okay.
And I get some feelings about having more than I'm entitled to have. It's kind of like borderline guilt. And I remember occasionally when I get in that place, I remember what Johnny said. I remember just so well when she stood in the pulpit of her church. It was an anniversary, and she was being handed the keys to an executive limousine. And there had been a lot of talk, apparently, some talk about whether or not she should have, the church should have given her this executive limousine, and she mentioned that. And then she leaned over that pulpit and she said, and I said, "Get thee behind me, Satan."
That's right. That's right.
And she said, "Because you can never do for me what I have done for you." She told that congregation that. They gave her a standing ovation. They knew she told them the truth. And she was not ashamed to claim. She knew that she had contributed a great deal to their lives, and that this executive limousine was a pittance when it came to trying to reward her for what she had done. She knew the gift she had given. She knew the power of that gift. She was not ashamed to have an executive limousine. She knew she deserved it. She had no doubt that it came to her because it was hers. I love that. And I have to default to that periodically when I get the feeling that, now this is just overkill here. This is just too much. When I had my birthday, my children, my grandchildren, my nieces, my nephews, my friends, they just overwhelmed me with doing beautiful, wonderful things for me. And it's sometimes you get so blessed, you say, well, is this my last day? Do they know? Did the doctor tell them something that he didn't tell me? And so they're all trying to do their greatest thing so that they can be sure that they have done all that they could do.
But it's the law.
It is.
See, it's the law working. When you give, you receive. And there are those times where you forget about how you've given. You forget about it. You don't think about the years.
Or you don't think you've given.
Right.
Because if you're a mother, you are supposed to take care of your children. You have met your responsibilities. They don't owe you anything.
Right, but it's not like that. It's appreciation. It's like when you give. You give because you appreciate what someone has done. They didn't have to do it.
And what
they didn't have to do whatever. And so when a person gives back to you, it's a wonderful thing to experience because we don't always get to thank those who've helped us. And when we have an opportunity to thank or give to someone who's given to us, it's a wonderful experience.
It is a wonderful, to be in a position of giving and not always having to be on a receiving end, not always being needy and someone has to run to your rescue, but you actually can give something to you can spare it.
Yes.
You can
Yes.
release
Yes.
it. You can let it go, and you can be happy to do it. It's a wonderful feeling. My daughter told me this. I hadn't known. That hadn't been a part of what I thought. She gave me a trip, a very expensive trip, and she sent my 2 granddaughters to be my escorts. And so they were with me, and I was not to worry about anything. Everything was taken care of, and I was just supposed to have stuff. So we went to dinner at a high-end restaurant, and when I saw the price of the meals, I said, "Oh, we can't eat here." And they said, "Oh, yes, we can, and we're going to." And I said, "No, I can't do this." Because I had this thing about, I don't do anything with anyone else's money that I won't do with my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I wouldn't have been sitting at that
Okay,
table with my
okay.
own money. So I didn't want to do it, but I was forced to stay in, and I enjoyed it tremendously. But
That's good.
the thing was, when I told my daughter that, she said, "Mama, don't stop other people from loving on you. Just say thank you."
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
That's
And I was
something.
trying to explain to her. She said, "You weren't doing me a favor. Don't save me money.
Right,
I wanted to do that for you." So many of us know how to give, but we don't know how to receive.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
And
please.
usually that's what happens. And that's one of the things that you will uncover. That oftentimes giving puts us in a particular space. It takes a certain consciousness to be a giver. And you have to be very careful, because it will also put you in a space of feeling a particular way. Oftentimes when we give, we give because we don't ever want to be in the position of having to receive,
Oh.
having to ask so that we receive. So we're unconsciously working the law. We keep giving, we keep giving, we keep giving. And things will come back to us.
It keeps coming.
And they do. But it's people will tell you, it's a much better feeling to give. They say it's a certain energy that you get when you're giving. But the same, to balance it off, you have to be able to receive. Because when you cannot receive, you will often fall into a space of thinking that giving is better than receiving. And when I say that, I'm saying that giving makes me better than a person that I'm giving to.
Oh.
Or giving makes me better than a person who is receiving. See? And so that's what we have to be careful about. We have to be careful there, because it's a very thin line.
Right.
So you give and you receive.
Well, the Bible says you reap what you
sow.
sow. So if you are reaping, it is not because you didn't sow it.
Yeah, well,
You
say
know,
that to yourself.
Yeah,
but say that to
yeah,
yourself, right?
right.
Because
So-
it feels funny when everything just starts coming your way.
Right.
Right? It's like, wow, like this is for me. You know, yes, it's for you. And just say thank you.
Yes.
Just say thank you.
I finally told my family, if anybody else invites me out to dinner, I'm going to consider it a threat. Because,
That's funny.
you know, people couldn't think of anything
Right.
else to do.
Right.
Everybody kept
Right.
taking me. They kept taking me, and I loved it.
Yeah.
But after a while, I said, wait a minute now. I can't keep going out having these
Right.
heavy meals.
Right,
But
right,
the
right.
thing is that you do need to understand and to accept and to expect
That's the word.
to
Expect
receive.
to receive. Because there are things we can give. I can give money and I can receive health. See,
It doesn't have
it
to be
doesn't have to
tit for
come
tat.
back exactly the way I gave it. The thing is
Or
just
from
to
the
give.
person to whom you gave.
No, it very seldom comes back from that same individual, right?
Right. Because
Like,
that individual may not ever have been in a position to give. You know, it
Right.
might be a child.
Yeah.
You know, children don't have jobs, they don't have income.
right.
And all they can do at some stage in their life is to receive material things. They can give you love. You
And
know, they can give you
listen.
obedience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I can remember a time where I had what I considered a poverty experience, right? And I was just, what can I give? What can I give? Because I knew that law. So I gave blood.
Oh.
I gave blood on a regular basis. And I mean, so much so that
they stopped you?
no, they start calling me.
Oh.
If I wasn't there at a certain time of the month, they will call. And it's, I don't know if I have a rare blood type, but I have a blood type where people need it all the time. So I don't know. You know, it's one of those blood types. So I make sure that I give blood because I don't know how many lives can be blessed by that while people are having conversations about God. My blood may give them those hours or days that they need to come to what's going to be next for them, like what they're going to do next. And so when I thought about it that way, I started just making sure that if I had to get on the bus and go, if I had to get a ride to go, I would always give blood. I could always do that.
Well, I don't think very many people think of that.
Yeah.
You know, because most people think if you don't have money to give, then you have nothing to give. But
always
you
have
know,
something to give.
Yes, yes, you. Yes,
And
you do.
remember the story about the widow, right? And all she had were these like vials. They were empty, you know. And the key point about it is that they were empty. And when the prophet comes and says, "What do you have in your house? What do you have in your consciousness that's empty, that can be filled up and given out?" And it will pay off whatever it is. She had this debt, and she was trying to pay off this debt, right? And so that's what she had. And so she went and she got these containers, I'll call them, and she was told to empty them out. And she even got containers from people nearby. And this precious oil was put in these containers, and she had enough to pay off her debt and with a lot more to spare. And so the metaphysics of that story is what I love about it, because whatever you have, everybody has something. Everybody has something to give. There's some opportunity that we have that we can give to someone else. If it's our time, if it's our money, if it's something that we've written,
if it's encouragement,
right? If it's saying stop, let's watch something more positive. People in a doctor's office, I use that often because people who are usually in a doctor's office, they aren't feeling 100%, right? And for them to have to sit and watch negativity while they're waiting to see the doctor is not helping them.
And try to figure out if they have those symptoms, and maybe they need to tell the doctor, and the doctor may need to do something about that.
Or if they need to sit and watch 15 people get shot every 5 minutes, every 15 minutes, if they're watching that kind of a show. So we have to be conscious of everything that we do, everything that we are. We have to know that we always have something to give, something to give. And the best way for us to give is to get rid of the negativity that we've picked up along the way. That's why the spiritual
Improving
cleanses.
yourself is a gift.
And it's a full-time job.
Right. And when you mention metaphysics, you know, the wonderful thing is to understand that these are principles that we're talking about. We're not talking about persons, places, and things in the literal sense.
No.
We're
No.
talking about the metaphor that is contained in this story. When you
That's
said the vials, the vessels, that's your consciousness.
Exactly.
You know, when
That's
you
it.
can make
That's
when
it.
you can make
That's
the
it.
connection, when you can read about Jesus and see that as a principle and not as a person per se.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
when you can read about something in the Bible and stop trying to see Hollywood movies with, you know, chariots and,
Yes,
and horses racing, when you can see the Reed Sea, not the Red Sea, but the reeds, the Sea of Reeds, you know, when you can see the barrier that would prevent people from escaping certain doom, when you see that barrier
That's right.
part, it's not meant for you to try to figure out how some horses and some people and some water and all of that. They're trying to give you an analogy so that you can grasp it, to put it in concrete terms, because if they put it in abstract terms, you may lose it. But you got to translate from concrete
have
to
to.
abstract.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to miss the whole point.
That's right.
And you'll go around saying, well, I don't believe that, you know, because how could such and such a... Well, that's not what they were. They
Right.
weren't.
That's
They
not-
were just
yeah.
trying to give you an example.
Right.
Or for instance, you know, what if? So that's why I say when people tell me they go into Bible study, are you taking everything literally, or are you understanding that this was a way at this time when these books were written for these people to explain to themselves what they were experiencing in their terms? The Lord is my shepherd. You know, we just they had shepherds.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
had pastures.
Yes.
They had sheep. You don't have those.
Right.
So you've got to be able to translate. I need to give you this 5 minutes that we got left because I'm having too good a time.
Okay. Well, let me see. They're transformative talk
Right.
at gmail.com. That's email address. So
Okay.
I'd like you to have that.
Okay.
Transformative talk, all one word, at
Okay.
gmail.com.
Okay.
And there you can email me and ask about the spiritual cleanses and about all of the other things, the speaking engagements, and this Sunday.
Yes, you're at Universal,
Right, I'm at the
Unitarian
Unitarian
Universalist
Universalist Church
and you're
in
also
Park
doing a
Forest.
workshop over there.
Right, on
Okay.
Saturday, which
Okay.
is transformation through painted prayers.
Right.
And
That's such an interesting thing to combine those two things.
It's a wonderful workshop. I've done it in Memphis, and it's a colleague of mine, Gina Alicia, and so we work together on the cleanse. Everything I do is about cleansing your subconscious mind. I don't care if it's a workshop.
But you got to hurry up and put something decent in, because nature doesn't abhors a
that's-
vacuum.
okay.
Doesn't like a void.
All right.
Don't want to have no empty space, because it's something, an idle mind, an unoccupied mind will get some
Right.
stuff.
And so that's what we do. We get it up, we get it out, and we replace it with truth.
Right.
See, we replace it with truth, and that's where the prayer comes in.
Right.
You actually create this prayer yourself, and then you paint on top of it. So it's a workshop, a hands-on workshop
Right,
as well.
right. Okay.
So that's Saturday,
Okay.
this coming Saturday, the 23rd, and then the 24th.
You'll
I'll be the
delivering
speaker,
the talk.
right, in
Right,
Park
right,
Forest at the
right.
Unitarian.
Right.
770 Sycamore is the
Right,
address,
right.
70 Sycamore.
Right. Well, we're not going to air until December.
Oh, okay.
It
okay.
doesn't matter. The fact that you do what you do, and you do it on a continuous basis,
Yeah.
and you can be found in time and space,
Right.
is the
Transformative
part
talk,
that, the part that matters most. But you certainly do enjoy your work.
I do.
You have this bright smile,
Yeah.
and it's a wonderful thing, and it's a wonderful thing that you are able to trace your roots back to something substantial. Because I always want to know, what influences people, why they do what they do, and how they feel about it. What would you change if you could change anything? Would you change anything?
Yeah, mine was growing up and listening to things that didn't make sense to me. There was a gentleman who used to stand on the corner preaching about things, and I never could.
The man would say, "How you can't go to heaven while you're living? How you going to go to heaven when you die?"
Just all kind
He
of.
stood downtown.
I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about,
right.
right? But there was another guy in our neighborhood, and it never made sense to me. And so, I got to go to a Baptist church, a congregational church in my neighborhood, right? AME Zion Church. Grandmother, mother, father, And so I put it all together, and then I took it all apart, right? And when I got to New Thought on 86th and State, Christ Unity, Christ Universal Temple.
Right.
That's when it made sense to me.
Right.
The metaphysics made sense.
Right.
I'm like, okay, I don't have to take this literally.
Right.
So
right.
it's
you shouldn't take it literally.
Right.
Because if you take it literally, you lose the message.
Right, but we don't know
You
that.
limit the message
Yeah.
when you try to reduce it to some concrete ideas that came from some people who lived in a time and space that was different
Exactly.
than your own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's my passion, is going through all of those experiences. Going and talking to people when they're making their transition, and people who refuse to forgive. Refuse to forgive.
Oh, you said something about I forgive in one of your transformative talks. I have one of your CDs
Right.
where
And-
you say, I forgive me.
I forgive for me.
Yes,
Right?
I
I
forgive
do this for me, not for
Right.
you. I do this
Right.
for me.
Right.
Forgiveness is a word I used to use. Then I had to move it to transformation because people did not want to forgive themselves.
We lose in our
I
show.
know, I
This is
know.
terrible. Okay, well, Reverend Henrietta Byrd, did you enjoy this?
I had a wonderful.
I had a wonderful time with you, and I look forward to seeing you. I love you.
Thank
and
you
I'm
so
glad you
much.
agreed to come on the show and share, because you
Thank
got
you.
a lot to share.
Thank you.
See, I knew it was going to go well. Well, you're welcome to cough now. The show is
I
over.
held that cough.
You did wonderfully. Why don't you